All right, so let's return to our cooker app, our little cooking app, and let's build out a nested resource. So what do I mean by nested resource? I mean a one-to-many relationship. So in our example, what we're going to build is I think of you have a recipe like a recipe for pizza, and you want to list all the comments. You want to allow people to put comments on that particular recipe. So a individual recipe has comments. And I did this, I made the command for this try to more or less match what you would see in your ORM, SQLAlchemy. You would have a recipe and you would say recipe.comments. So if I come down here, you'll see if you have a recipe, you can write recipe.comments, and that will, in the object relational model, that will give you all the comments for that recipe. So I wanted us to be able to write something similar to that, and I think of templates as plurals. So for us, it would be recipes.comments. So that's how we will create the view. We'll say Flask make view, use our recipes structure, add comments to that, and create the index file, the one that lists all those comments. And then generate routes for me, add the controller, and add the model. Now the model that it's going to add is the segment prior to the RESTful action. Whew, that's a lot of talking. So let's go back to the recipes app that we had. Let me just kind of demo for you what we have. So here is our main page, which is just a hello world. And then we can type in recipes. We have a database and we set up and we have 2 recipes in it, pizza and salad. I have a link from here to the show page for recipes. And then so this is a particular recipe. I would like to see all the comments related to this recipe. So I would need like a link in here that would say comments, and then you could click on that, and then that would take us to all the comments for that recipe. So I'm back in my terminal. I am in my app, Cooker. Let's pull up VS Code just so we can kind of refresh ourselves. It's been a little bit. We had a little bit of a detour where we talked about get, post, redirect, and we used a different app just for demonstration purposes. So here we have our routes, and we have our route for recipes, and they are recipes and recipes with show page, the show route, and then the same controller. So the index and the show, and then over here, the index and the show. Okay, so, and in our models, we have the user model that came with the starter app, and then we created a model recipe. All right, so now let's go back to the terminal and let's type in let's make a new template. And in our templates, we just have under recipes, we just have the index and show. Okay, so we're going to end up with an entire new folder. One thing I want to do right before, because something kind of crazy and kind of cool is going to happen, I want to pull up this recipes init file. And they're pretty standard. They're basically 3 lines. And we're going to see what's going to happen here when we make this nested relationship. So just keep this here. So we'll do Flask make view, and then recipes dot, okay, a recipe can have comments, and give me the index page. I usually start with that. That just as a page that shows all the comments for a particular recipe. All right, so then, and just to keep in mind, what we're wanting to do is we want to show the comments for a given recipe, not all comments in our database. So we'll do our flags here, optional commands of route, controller, and model, because we do not have a comments model. So right now, run that, and a whole lot of things are going to happen. All right, so kind of gives you an overview here of what happened, but let's go to code and see what happened. So notice I actually, before I had 3 lines in here, what we did is we registered the recipe comments blueprint, and we did that in the recipe init file, which is kind of weird. When I first saw this, I was like, wait a minute, you just registered a blueprint in another blueprint. Whoa. Usually, and the way I've always done it, is I registered all my blueprints in my create app down here. And that was the way I was trained. But what I love about Flask is it's not opinionated at all. It allows you the freedom to try new things. And so in this particular example, if we go to our routes, we have recipes registered in when we create the app. So that got registered when we created the app, but in recipes is sitting comments. And so the recipe init file has comments registered. So these routes are now registered. So it's a nesting effect. And what I love about this structure is that you see it not only in the structure of the database, but you also will see this in the structure of your application, so that when you come back to this 6 months or a year later, you're like, oh, okay, I have recipes and I have comments. These comments are on what again? You immediately see that in the code. And so here, what you'll need in order to view this index page is you'll need a recipe ID so that you're viewing the comments on this particular recipe. All right, so that's the routes. Let's go to the model. In the model, we have a new model called Comment, and it's our standard model that gets built out. You'll have to add the columns that you want, and you'll have to do the migration in order to see it in the database. But you have a new controller, which is, and it also shows the relationship, RecipeCommentController. I always keep these singular. And so here's my index file or index method, and it's passing through the recipe ID. So you have that to work with, so you can get, this way you can come in here, you can grab your recipe, and then you'll do recipes.comments. So you'll do something like this. Recipe equals recipe.query.get or 404, and then recipe ID, and then comments equal recipe.comments. And then that way you can pass in your comments equal comments. And then we just need to bring this in. So do that. All right. So we and then the only other thing we haven't looked at is, let's go down to the templates. I love the fact that the structure is viewable not only in the database, but also in my code. So here's my templates, recipes, have comments, and there's the index file. So garbage collection is easy. So when we go to the page, we should be able to say, give me the comments. And let's see, I have 404 error, an error here. Recipe objects has no attribute comments. And that's correct. We have not set that relationship up. So just for demonstration purposes, instead of setting, I guess we could set that up. Let's see if I could set that up on the fly and not take too terribly long here. So we'll go back to the model, and then what it's yelling about is that in the controller, which kind of on the fly, I wrote this, Recipe.comments, and right now, there is no such relationship. So in recipes, you would need to say what comments are, which is a db.relationship, and it's a relationship on the comment, then just back populate is recipes, but I think I have it backwards. Hold on 1 second. It's going to be more like this one. So it's the relationship is comment. Okay, that's right. And then back populate recipe. And then we may need to give it a foreign key like this. So let's just do that. Foreign keys. All right, and that's going to be comment dot, and that's not going to be on there. So it's going to be recipe ID. Okay, it's probably going to yell because there's no recipe ID. So it's yelling because there's no recipe ID. So in order to set that up, we need recipe ID on the comment. So let's do that. Recipe ID is equal to db column db.integer. And it's a foreign key, so you do it like this. So it's a foreign key, and then it's on, it's a foreign key for recipe.id. And then the question is, do we want to allow this to be nullable? And I think the answer is no, because otherwise you would have this. I wouldn't make it nullable, so nullable is equal to false. Let me finish that sentence. If you allow it to be nullable, then you would have a comment that would not attach to any recipe, and that would just be weird. It would just be this comment hanging out. So let's see if that solved our problem. Let's see. One or more mappings failed. Can't. Join because parent-child. I wonder if I need the migration at this point. So let's add one more thing. And if this doesn't work, so on my comment, I've attached it to the recipe, but I would like to be able to actually have a message. So we'll put message in here, which will be a DB column, DB, we'll just do text. That way you can have a whole lot of this. Instead of saying DB string with DB text, you can have like a lot. Nullable is false. You have to put something in there. Okay, so then let's go now here. Let's do a migration. Flask. Well, first, in order to do the migration, you need your environment variable activated. So source, then activate. And then we are going to do Flask db migrate -m, and then I created the comments table. All right, let's see if there are any problems. Of course there are. Foreign key, could not find table recipe. I have a typo, you probably saw it right there. And yay. Okay, so now what we'll do is we will update that. So Flask db upgrade. All right, so now if we go actually to cooker, let's see that we have cooker. So we have comments, yay, and comments have recipe IDs. So here is my recipe. I have a recipe 1 for pizza. Let's just put a comment in. So for recipe 1, this is great. And then we'll make a new one for recipe 1. We'll say, love it, exclamation mark. Okay, we'll save those. So now when I go into here, let's refresh, see what happens. It's still yelling. One or more mappings failed to initialize. You cannot proceed with the initialize. I probably have a spelling. Original mapping was comment. That's not right. Recipe has one property. Property was for mapping. Sure, configuration has been called. So let's just go a little bit slower back through this because I did it quickly. So we have a comment which has a recipe ID, and that's recipe ID is foreign key on the table recipes. column ID. So that looks good. Maybe we need to say that you have a relationship here. That you can get a recipe, recipe. Get your back reference recipe, which would be DB relationship, and it's going to be on the recipe table. And back reference here, or back populates, here is comments. See if that made it happy. Whoa, that was it. So I didn't have anything wrong, I just had a missing thing. Okay, so now I'm on recipes 1, and if I go to comments, I get my garbage collection, which is what we expected. If we actually want to see those comments, we need to go into the template. In the controller, we have passed, that's the recipe controller. I want the recipe comment controller. I passed all the comments in. We can even pass in the recipe too. Let's do that. Recipe equals recipe. All right. So now if I go over to my index page for recipe comment, we can say, all right, here is my recipe and the title. We can maybe put that here. Let's do this. We'll make this one. We will split the page here. And then we will come over here, split the page like this, bump this up. All right, that way you can see the code changing as we type, or the website changing as we change the code. So we don't need this anymore. All right, so for pizza, here are my, maybe an H4 or something. Here are my comments. And then I can do something like this. So I can say for comment in comments, a list item, and then we can do comment.message. And up here, an ordered list. Oops. Cut down here. We'll end our for. And that. And so, hey, there are comments. All right, so not exactly as I had planned, and that's cool. You know, I want you all to know that I'm human too. I make mistakes, but we can fix them together. So that is a demo to show you exactly how nested relations work. And hopefully, even through, we even did a migration, which I was not planning on doing. I was just planning on showing you just the generic setup. But now you see the generic setup plus a migration. So we'll keep that. And the thing that I really, really like about this is, since we're here, let's even do this. We can create a link right now. In order for me to get there, I had to do it this way. I was here and I didn't have a link for comments, and so it would be nice to have that link. But what I was going to say is that the thing I like about the way this is written is that it follows the object relational mapping. So it's easy to remember what the routes are. So when you want to put in a link, like so I'm on the show page here, and I want to put in a link for comments, so an anchor tag, oops, with an href. Okay, and I can say comments. All right, so let's save that. Here's what the link is gonna look like. Let's just put it out here, and we can say, instead of hard coding that, we can just say recipe.id. So it's gonna look like that, and that's what we want. So let's stick that in our href. So now when I click here, it takes me directly to that resource. All right, that's great. We'll see you in the next video, where we'll make another page for this. All right, see you in the next video.